Hello and welcome to my show, Connecting with Saima Parwaz. I hope all of you are doing great and waiting to see my today's guest. Canada's current population is about 40 million, and condo living is an increasingly popular option for Ontarians. 15% of homes in the province are condos. I'm going to discuss condo laws in today's episode with very beautiful couple, Ayoun and Sabeeya Haroon. How are you guys? Welcome to my show.
Good. Thank you so much.
Us.
So we are going to discuss condo laws. In today's episode, it's a very hot topic in these days, and people are asking, they're calling me and they're asking so many questions.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So first of all, Ayoun and Sabeeya, how's life?
It's good, alhamdulillah.
good, yeah.
It's rolling.
What's new?
Same old work,
Home.
home, busy with schedules, busy with kids.
Yeah.
Good,
Same
good.
old.
Weather is getting.
It is a little flaky out there, isn't it?
We should be lucky with the amount of warm weather.
That we
got.
had,
Yeah.
we were spoiled, but now
Until
we're into
November.
dark days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you guys go for the holidays in December or?
We never discussed December holidays
Yeah.
yet. We're thinking more February, that we do
Yeah.
December here and then maybe take off in February, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Like more family life.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
exactly.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to discuss condo laws, and you're gonna answer
Absolutely,
if I
yeah,
will
I'll
have
chime
any
in.
question to you.
Yeah,
right?
sure.
So usually people ask me, what rights do condo owners have?
Okay, so that's not a very simple question. So basically, when you say a condo owner basically has proprietary rights in the property. So the monetary value, no one can take that away from you. So I think essentially the first question people always ask is, hey, can my condo management evict me? Because that's the only other body that's related to your unit in the building. So in simple terms, they cannot evict a tenant. I mean, not a tenant, actually the owner of the property. They cannot evict owners, but they have certain control rights over your property. So when you're actually signing up with and you're purchasing this property, there's a lot of bylaws that the purchaser signs, and he agrees to abide by those rules. For example, I had a client who upgraded his condo with certain tiles on the floor, which were never approved by the condominium corporation or the management. And it ended up costing him thousands of dollars because
Unknowingly.
because he did not know. He thought once you own a condo, it's all yours. But there are certain rights that condominium corporations have over your property. So that tile that he ended up using was making a lot of high-pitched noise when people would step on it. So people under the unit were complaining, and long story short, the condo management ended up fining my client because he never got permission to do so. So even though the property is yours, you still have to be very careful because there are certain rights making structural changes to your unit. Nowadays, there's so many different types of units, not even just a condo. Sometimes you're getting townhomes. You have to be very careful with, the stuff that you agree to. It's very important that you go through the proper legal process where all the documents are reviewed.
And to chime in, I would say, like, at the juncture of you working with your real estate agent, like a good one, like yourself, and then like a savvy lawyer, you would want to make sure that you go through the legality in terms of what could be held up against you if you're dealing with this condo corporation, right? And understand exactly what those rules are at the time of closing. So when you're in your unit, you're living comfortably. It's not unknown to you, or it's not a surprise. Psychologically, you can say, okay, you know what, I dealt with this at that right time, so now I know how to deal with it going forward. Right? And then you have a comfortable lifestyle.
Because sometimes they don't even know anything until they close the property.
Exactly.
Absolutely. A typical transaction that we see is just people come to sign quickly, but sometimes I actually press on my clients to, so I review those documents with them because I know some of the stuff in those agreements
will be a surprise.
I know for a fact that, because I've dealt with so many clients now, I know that it's going to be a problem once I tell them. So sometimes it's easement, sometimes it's hydro rights, like, who controls the piping in the house?
Even
the HVAC system,
even
all
the
of that stuff.
fees, right? Condo
Absolute
fees.
condo fees, you pay for it, yeah. There's certain levels of maintenance that, and then vice versa, certain obligations the condo management has to do to make sure that, you know, the areas around the building are clearly labeled as slippery, that they're being salted in bad weather.
And
A lot of
also to
obligations that
add,
they
to
have
chime
do.
in, Ayoun, it's like, you know, you would think a simple installation of a pot light or a spotlight, whatever you may call it, in a bedroom. I just want to put in 4. I'm living in a condominium, but do you have the right and access to that? How do you channel and go about it correctly, right? So there are so many advantages to living in a condo, but you just want to make sure that you have you know and you understand the rules, and then it can be smooth sailing, right?
Yeah.
It's really simple actually if you just learn it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, if someone wants to complain about the condo management,
Yeah. So every condominium corporation has its own process. You know, typically my understanding is that you would first complain to the management. Sometimes they have forms. Now everything is online, so you go online, you file a complaint. It really depends on what the issue is. If it's to do with the maintenance issue, you can even sue the condominium corporation. Let's just say if you're outside and you slip on the premises where that property is, and if you see that it's not snowed and it's slippery and it's not maintained, and that there's no salting done, well, you can sue your condominium corporation for, I guess, millions of dollars, right? But typically that's not the case, because what they do is they kind of like sit down with you, and if they're really at fault, they try to kind of mitigate. But it really depends on who the manager is, how the condominium corporation is being dealt with. Newer modern corporations, when they're financially well kept, then they have a tendency to be more organized. But some of the buildings, and that's also something that you need to be wary of. When you're buying a condo corporation, make sure you order status certificates. Make sure you speak to the lawyer that you're dealing with, so you can discuss what the status of that corporation is. Sometimes there's bankruptcies going on. Sometimes there's legal proceedings for millions of dollars, potentially
Cost pushed onto
onto the residents.
because what happens that even realtors, they don't tell
Oh
to
yeah,
the
absolutely, they don't, yeah,
Yeah.
just to make a sale.
Yeah.
And the worst case scenario that I've seen is that your mortgage gets rejected, because if when you're filing for your mortgage application, the lender always asks for a status certificate. So if that's not clear, if it's showing like bankruptcy, potentially millions of dollars worth of lawsuits, but the bank's gonna be like, we're not gonna give you the money because we don't know where this corporation is headed.
Like it's contentious already, so what
And
value
these are
does it even have?
problematic properties. Sometimes there was a file where the realtor hid the fact that the property had a fungal problem, like a mold problem, and he purchased it, but then realized that once, you know, the status certificate, they have to show there's mold on it. But he didn't read that. He didn't review it with a lawyer. So he ended up purchasing a property that lost value of hundreds of thousands of
And
dollars.
he came in after the fact to our firm and said, oh,
Yeah.
you know, what can I do? And then that's a whole new
Yeah.
litigation process.
So
So
you have to think, who do you litigate against? You litigate
Yes.
against the agent. Is it the management's fault? Whose fault is it, right?
Yeah.
So all of that comes into play.
So the market is getting better. Are you-
Absolutely, it's
fingers
starting
crossed
to
that
sizzle
it's
up.
getting better.
Yeah,
Thanks
inshallah.
to our southern neighbor, we've had a change of leadership, and that fortunately has impacted the North American market in total.
Yeah.
We're seeing good numbers coming in. I am skeptical with, you know, the interest rate drop we're going to see in the next coming
Even in
weeks or
December.
months.
Yes,
I think in
December. I
Yeah,
believe,
it's going to make an effect, but I think essentially more than just the interest rate, we need to develop and kind of like give back to the small business, to the small to the
Attitude?
medium style
Yeah.
businesses. We need to fix our immigration. There's a lot of problems that our society has. It's getting better, but we need to make sure that we're headed into the right direction.
Have to
Politically
control
speaking.
crimes.
Absolutely, security situation. I mean, this is what we're here for, to have candid conversations. These are not political statements. We have issues. Our society has security issues. We've discussed automobile theft. We've talked about home invasions, you know, but again, that's all the negative, but there's a lot of potential in this country. And I think if we logically think and progress, I think a change in leadership, and I'm not suggesting in any way who I'm supporting, but I think we need a change in leadership, perhaps fresh elections, because it seems like there's a very big mistrust between people and the government.
For sure.
It's not just about Trudeau or Liberals, it's just people are not believing in the system. We have an unknown amount of temporary workers that are a lot of them are hardworking, but a lot of them resort to violence and crimes and petty thefts because they don't have anything to do. You know, there's documentaries about how people were scammed into this, and I think we just need to sit back and reflect on what we've done, and follow our southern border. What Trump is doing, he's introducing tariffs so people focus on local economies, local building, local infrastructure. When you're imposing a tax on any imports in the United States, automatically, if I'm a supplier and if I make tools, I'm going to start looking at local manufacturing plants, because that's a lot of money to be paying international governments. So yeah, I think there's a lot that needs to be done, but we're hopefully going to head into the right direction. Yeah.
What is your personal opinion about it?
For the economy for Canada, I do see that shift in attitude, a minor one, because of what I second Ayoun in terms of the American elections and how that's created like a ripple effect of positivity here in Canada. And also, I do commend and notice that the Liberal government is attempting to give back right before the election. So let's see how that goes. We do have some friends deep sea dived into politics, so I don't want to say a whole lot. But you know what? I want to think positively. I hope that, you know, Canadians muscle up and think about the Canadian economy in a positive way, so that we see that fluctuation of, you know, buying and spending you know, turn now, and so people can enjoy their lives. Enough with the negativity, and, you know, kind of have that enthusiasm to approach an agent or approach someone to have a conversation of, oh, should I do an investment, whether that be business or real estate or whatever that may be, so that we see that kind of ripple effect into that on the micro and macro, obviously, but the micro levels too, which are in our individual homes. Like, I'm really hoping for that. That's why I said I started the conversation like, fingers crossed, everything will be headed in a more, I mean, it's decreased so much.
Especially
I think the only way is up now.
Small businesses.
Exactly.
You know,
So,
these big corporations, Costco, Walmart,
They are okay, I guess.
yeah.
they'll always be fine because their margins are so big. But
It's that small family home, like the small family owned business.
tax breaks, giving back. Now, you know, foreign policy too, because we keep sending money all over into different conflicts around the world. But somehow what we're not realizing, we're the driving force behind it. We're like signatory to so many things that can pause war right now. But, you know, we keep on saying one country must do more to protect, you know, we all know about Palestine and the Israel conflict. It's engulfed the whole world. That's just, it's just such a polarized issue. And I think everybody needs to sit down and discuss international law. And it's really going to affect us. You know, what we don't realize is that all of this is connected. So world stability, and focusing on Canadian growth. You know, I always talk about introducing auto manufacturing in Canada. I don't know why we still don't have a Canadian car. We don't, you know, even the smallest countries in Europe, Asia, they're producing cars. They have their own brand, but we still don't, you know. And, you know, our government's not a second, third world country. It's a strong G7 country. We have all the resources, and I think that's what we need to do.
But I think they're focusing more on immigration.
Yeah,
Fix
that's
immigration.
another conversation for another day. We'll dive into that.
Immigration,
But tying back
fix
to
it.
like, you know, condo living and real estate and the investments, it's just, you know, I think it's about instilling that confidence back into the buyer in order to circulate that positivity again. You know, something we saw a couple of years ago. Yeah, it's been heavy most recently.
So we're going to come back to the condo laws.
Sure.
So these are very small questions which my clients ask me.
Okay.
Who's responsible for pipes in condo walls in Ontario?
So, okay, so it really depends on what the issue is. When you say responsible, I mean, when a person living in a property that's his own, he does not have control over those pipes. So let's hypothetically talk about an issue.
Sorry, I would say in totality, it's all the condo owners, but the corporation is the one governing it for them on their
basically
behalf,
common
right?
elements.
Yeah.
So the maintenance of a building. So what you really own is everything inside the four walls, right? Anything in the walls and the outside is owned. It's not owned, but it's condo hold,
Yeah,
meaning
it's
that
governed.
collectively a board owns it and takes responsibility of taking care of that stuff. So let's just say if you're in a condo home and a pipe bursts, well, if it's not your fault, then you're not responsible to cover for pipes.
And what I mean,
Pipes would
I
be-
think what Ayoun means by it's not your fault, like you haven't drilled through it
haven't done
and triggered
anything, yeah.
that, you know? If you've
Yeah.
not done that, then ultimately the conversation goes back to Ayoun. Sorry,
Yeah.
you can continue.
So I was just saying, because it's not just your unit, that unit's connected to 10 other units. So we don't know the internal plumbing of how the pipes are. So anyways, long story short, what I'm trying to say is that the condominium corporation is responsible for any leakages or anything of that sort, because it's you're giving a condo fees for that maintenance, because it is specialty work. If there's a problem with it, it requires professionals to come in and inspect not just your unit, but perhaps look at the whole blueprint of the building to see how to fix a problem.
Recently, my mom's apartment, it got flooded. Like
Okay.
5 months ago.
From above? Coming
She's
down?
on 5.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
And no one is taking care of it, even not the insurance company.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. Sometimes you're dealing with very poor managed corporations. Sometimes these people are not professional. Sometimes it is various different issues. Sometimes they don't have the money.
Sorry, was she able to ascertain like where it came from? Like,
Yeah, it's kitchen faucet.
Kitchen
oh,
faucet.
so that's within the
Oh.
4 walls. Yeah.
So that
So
will
that really
depend on your
changes
home
it.
insurance coverage.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they are also play games, the insurance
Okay.
company.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so it's,
That's
So-
something that's very common.
I know, but a water leak with that would not be covered by the condo, because there was something within the 4 walls.
There's,
It was-
there's an expectation
As
that you
expectation
maintain
that if there's a leak, then
Yeah.
the expectation that there's devices you can buy to make sure that you get alarm on your phone if there's ever a water leak. So
That's a
that
very
kind of
good
leak,
example.
yeah, that's a good example, and
Yeah.
I don't think unless you have insurance, sometimes you have comprehensive insurance that covers any types of water leaks. You may not have had that insurance. That's why the insurance is arguing, or I don't know the set of facts that went into that matter. But yeah, sometimes you're right. Even though it may be a clear case and you may have the coverage, sometimes insurance companies are very difficult to deal with. So are condo corporations, depending on how well they're managed and how rich they are, their budgeting and stuff. Yeah, yeah.
what happens if someone breaks condo rules and laws in Ontario?
Yeah, so basically, first step would be to write a notice to them. The management would write a notice to, it's very easy because the management's right at the bottom, your unit's up there, so they can even hand deliver you stuff. So they'll give you a warning. Every corporation is different. Some people will give you 10 days.
They'll give a
30 days.
notice.
So
what
they
they
give a
call a
notice,
notice or initiation
So
letter.
they can throw them out, or?
No, it's
they
a
cannot throw
correction
them
letter.
out.
like
It's
how
a
you wanna
correction letter.
correct it.
It's like a demand notice.
Yeah.
So you are now bound by certain laws that you have to fulfill as being a resident or owner of that property. So you cannot say, just because I own this property, therefore I'm going to do whatever I want. By you buying that property, you already agreeing to certain control rights that the management has. So if you're not paying your condominium fees per month, well, they can take you to court for that. And they can say, they can impose fines on you. And eventually, worst case scenario, depending on the issue, let's just say if it's a safety issue, let's just say that, a condo owner decides to put something in the property that significantly, impacts the structure of the building. Well, they'll take you to court under safety because now you're jeopardizing other people's lives as well. The court then has the jurisdiction to force a sale and say, this has to change, get them evicted because now this is a safety issue. So it's not as easy as peanuts for anyone to just come and say, the management's going to evict you. But depending on the nature of the issue, if it's something extremely serious, worst case scenario is that the court can force a sale. But in layman terms, a condo corporation itself does not have right to evict you. They cannot.
So how much, as we're talking about the condo fees, how much they can increase the fees, the condo corporation?
Oh, that's why it's very important for you to study a status certificate, because it talks about budgets, it talks about any expected lawsuits that are coming their way. And in Ontario, it's legally, the condo corporation is bound to release this information. So make sure you guys read your status certificates because it tells you a lot
Or for
about the
instance, you
condition.
know, you may be going into your condo or you may be canvassing the idea that this is something that you want to purchase, but the condo corporation might be gearing up to do a major reno. Like they're going to get rid of the pool, the existing one, it was leaking, they're putting in a new one. Well, you're going to see a cost push on a monthly basis for that. So that's something that you potentially probably would have never thought of. So that certificate is going to be the shining star at that juncture for you to review with someone like a good lawyer.
So this
Certificate?
certificate,
Yeah.
it is one time or they change it every year?
Oh, it's always updated.
It's always
right?
updating. So anytime there are material changes with your budget, so I was telling you that if there's a roof that leaked, guess what? That roof they're very costly.
So they add up
Right.
more.
So they keep adding to your budget. So let's just say if you have a $10 million budget and your roof's costing, sometimes it's really bad. Sometimes it's not covered by insurance and everybody bears the burden. So that budget is used towards that. So sometimes
Exactly.
if it's really, really bad, then your corporation becomes bankrupt and says, we don't have any money. So the first thing they do is they increase your common elements because that is the only way they can sustain that building because there was a damage that wasn't foreseen. Newer buildings, you don't get to see a lot. Older buildings, you have to be very
We
careful.
had a
And it will,
client-
sorry, it will
Yeah.
always say that if such a change is coming, the status certificate will always say, we are expecting
An
common
increase.
elements to go up.
So we
What's
had a
that?
client who was in the interim process of purchasing, and she was okay with this increase where literally they were updating the elevators, putting in something new, and they were also replacing the pool. But you know what? She knew that that fee would be increasing, and she really appreciated that at the right time she was able to absorb that information and then know her budget. You know, so she was okay with that increase because she loved the unit itself. So, you know, psychologically, you can really come around it when you're purchasing a condo unit when you know in advance, because now you know how to budget, you know the cost benefit analysis, and when you go in with ease. And it's very similar to even potentially a home. You know what I mean? So I would say these set of instructions or ideas can be applied to no matter what property you're purchasing.
Absolutely.
Do your thorough research with a good agent and a good lawyer, and then
I think lawyer is
hopefully
very
you're going.
important.
Absolutely,
Yes.
because he's like the nucleus of the transaction. So I'm
Helping
dealing
you
with
guide
agents,
that.
I'm dealing with clients, I'm dealing with the other
People
lawyers.
save like few $100s, but they don't
Yes.
hire the lawyer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And-
And then they come after the fact, and it's kind of like, well, why didn't you go through this properly?
Yeah.
You know, like just to save that $200-300, but now look what you're
And you
in,
know, you have seen in like recently
Yeah.
the closing cost.
Yeah, yeah.
Some of the
Yes.
builders, they charging so much closing cost.
Yes, it's
and
insane.
Especially condo,
yeah.
I've seen in excess of $30,000-40,000 just cost. I'm not talking about taxes, I'm not talking about rebates, I'm just talking about strictly cost. Meter, hydrometers, levies, and
They don't-
by
That's
the
when you're a
time
first purchaser, right?
They don't
Yeah.
check the cap, right?
Yeah.
They
need to
don't
check the cap.
exactly. That's
Exactly.
something that anytime you're buying a property, always make sure that the levies are capped because these levies they go up to $15,000-20,000.
Yeah.
They say that it's not going to go up more than 5,000, but that's just verbal. They're not putting a limit to it. So when people come and the closing happens and everybody's happy, we gave the deposit 10%. We're going to close first. The lender tells you to pay an extra 10%. These are all things you need to discuss when you're buying property. This is why we need to bring that that
Knowledge and
step-by-step
information.
knowledge to our clients because I feel that a lot of times people like you said, in the course of saving money, they end up, not benefiting from that knowledge that somebody could give to have them well prepared. And that's why, these transactions, they sometimes go completely nullified because people didn't plan
They
it already.
default, yeah.
They default. There's mortgage agents running after people, vice versa. People are suing each other. But again, one person at a time. The lawyers have to make sure that they're professional enough to, explain what they've experienced and guide the clients through.
Dear friends, we are going for a break. I'll see you shortly. So, guys, we were talking about the separating the property if couples decide to get divorced. So, Sabeeya, you're
Yes.
being a family lawyer.
Yes.
We were talking about if someone wants to
How property is dealt with, right?
yeah,
Yes.
how they dealt with the property if they want to be separate.
Exactly. So we were just discussing this and having a laugh over the break. Yes.
Home, right?
Okay.
First,
So
tell what is a matrimonial
I'll
home?
tell you. So basically, when you think about property, let's just say we're only focused on real estate property for now. We're not talking about other sorts of property like, accounts or investments or anything like that. When we categorize real estate property, it's either a matrimonial home or invested properties or like cottages, which are also invested properties. For a matrimonial home, it's dealt with very distinctly and it's like separate and distinct from the way other property will be dealt with because we consider it somewhat fragile because that's where the family has spent their time. We've invested in these homes and we've created memories, and therefore that property holds what I always explain to my client, its own star. So when we're dealing with that property and how we need to exit or come to a clean break when dealing with that property, we have to think about it not as an automatic 50% division, but how did you invest your time in it monetarily, and then also in terms of who was the primary caretaker during this entire process of the children, and then who was the breadwinner, like who went and financially supported this home during the course of the marriage.
And the duration of the marriage matters
Exactly, a lot. So if you're in a 10-year plus relationship and now hitting almost 20 years, how will that property be dealt with? So the materialized facts of a client really come into play when we deal with a matrimonial home. And some people even say, okay, on the onset, and they say, oh, we've Googled it, we know the definition, a matrimonial home is something that we both put money towards. No, that's false. A matrimonial home is where you've decided to park up your family and live there. Okay, now some people say, okay, well, can this be a rental property? Yes, it can, but that just means that there's going to be no division in it, obviously, because you don't own it. But a matrimonial home is where you've triggered bringing in your family, you have now started to live in it, you've made yourself domicile in it, and your kids are now using that postal code to go to school. That is how you've now began triggering that property as a matrimonial home. Despite the fact that you may have thought, no, this was just a temporary fix, but now it's been 3 years and my partner knew about it at the time of going into that property. It doesn't matter. You've triggered that definition of it becoming a matrimonial home. Okay, so you have to be very careful with the way you conduct yourself and the mannerism that you move in with your family. Okay.
So this question can be for any of you can answer.
We'll try our best. Whoever gets
You guys are
the
good.
buzzer first.
Yeah. What happens if someone, like one of the partner dies and the house is on that person's name?
Okay, so that's wills and estates, right?
So it will depend on how the property was owned. So in Ontario, there's two ways to own a property. One is joint tenancy, and the other one is tenancy in common. The difference between, and this is a very common misconception, so people think that once you own a property jointly, which is in majority of the ownership in Ontario, two people own it jointly, meaning that you own it equally, which does not mean 50-50. It just basically means you equally own 100% of the proceeds. There's actually, it would be wrong for me to say 100%, it just means equal. There's no set percentage. A tenancy in common is typically used when you're partnering with someone. So let's just say if I'm going to third-party friend or a relative that I'm partnering up with, then in a
It could even
tenancy
be
in common,
multiple people, right?
it could be like
And a
3 people, 5
percentages.
people, and then you could set percentage. So which means that, God forbid, if let's just say one person dies, this is where your question's answered. If a person dies, the first thing you have to determine is what the ownership was like. If me and my wife own a property jointly and I pass away, God forbid, then automatically everything that I own is hers.
Because there's already a vested interest in it.
Because she equally owns it with them. So the rule in Ontario says that if a person dies, automatically everything goes to the other spouse. That is if it's jointly owned. Problems come when there's 3 people or 4 people
And there's
or 5
potentially no
people.
will, or you've left everything intestate.
Those are the
so-
kind of problems you can face,
Yeah.
right? Tenancy in common, if let's just say I own a 50, she owns a 50, and then there's a third friend of ours that owns a 50, sorry, not 50, but it would
We
be
do the math.
50, 25, 25.
Yeah.
This would mean that if I was to pass, my 50 does not automatically go to her or the third person. It becomes part of my estate, meaning that now whoever is my next of kin,
We look towards the will to seek
so
those
let's just say if my
instructions.
next of kin is my child, and I've in the will said that everything that I own is my child's, well then my child's going to claim that 50% from my estate. It will never actually go to the other party.
Provided the fact that that's how he's expressed it in his will.
Now if there's no will,
Yeah.
then that means the court's going to intervene and perhaps use statutory statutory law, local legislation, case law to determine who the rightful owner is. Is the wife the rightful owner? Because it really depends on her claim. If the wife is saying, I am the 50% owner because I'm the only one that contributed to it, well, then there's nobody else if I don't have kids. But if I have kids and they're making a separate claim, it becomes an estate matter then.
So
That's
having
how-
a will is also very important. Then.
Absolutely, we always talk about it.
Always. When you have a child or there's a major turning point in your life, I always even tell my clients, you need to update it. So not only just having that will put in place, but also always updating it. Like for instance, if you've just now, gone through a divorce, you need to update it. You've just had a child, you need to update it. Your spouse has passed, update it. So family life is very fluid. And you have to move with that flow and that current. So you want to make sure that as you face these new chapters, I call them, I don't even want to call them challenges, but as you enter a new chapter in your life, you want to make sure that you've done the homework so that, you're not upset or you're not leaving, your estate in a unfashionly manner. You want to have it all nice and clean when you depart. So
And one day we can talk about, I think we've done a program on estates, but we can now dig
do a deep sea dive.
yeah, exactly, a deep sea dive into what the issues with the state issues. Like, there's so much that goes on once a person passes away. People say, "Oh, gee, we only have one property, and our kids know what they were." It's very difficult. These kids, you don't realize. A lot of South Asian people don't realize when our kids grow up, they have extended families, wives,
conflicting
children.
views.
They're conflicting.
And
views.
then the sad part is that a chunk of your estate is now used up in litigation. Why are you doing that?
Yeah.
Right? Like, why have you allowed your equity to go towards litigation when you could have simply put in a really good drafted will for a few $100 and dictate those instructions as per whatever you may believe in. Like a lot of people in our community, want Sharia law put in place, and we know how to draft in that mannerism.
And it's such
right?
a religious, this is not about us trying to sell people to get wills. It's actually a mandatory commandment from Allah in
Sharia
our
law.
religion, in our religion being Muslims. It's actually a commandment to us. We have to make a wasiyah for our coming generations, because even God knows that that's what protects you from conflicts
and families bicker over
family
that.
bickering and
Yeah.
breakdown of families. That's why a lot of times, I'm pretty sure on a lighter note, when we go to Pakistan, we see these kind of conflicts. A lot of
It's
times,
unfortunate.
often. It's not just one family. It's always somebody stuck with like some land problems. Somebody ate somebody's property, and there's so much
I
that
thought
goes
of
on.
literally.
That's because the
They
system is
engulfed
not
it.
legitimate.
Yeah.
Now I do see that a lot of improvement has happened. A lot of the stuff is being done electronically, but that's only to improve the system. But we still have a long way to
So
go.
that
I
question
have-
is a very good question, Saima, but it's a
Yeah.
complex question.
Yes, I have heard
Yeah.
even in some back homes, there is no real estate lawyer.
There's nothing, because
Oh.
the concept.
That's very
is-
new to me.
Because the lawyers don't have a job. What are they
Yeah.
supposed to do when everything's
The
based
system
on
is bogus.
money and favors and I don't want to call it like bribing, but yes, bribing is also a real thing. Sometimes coercive behavior, sometimes violent behavior. That's what they resort to
Exactly.
take over a property. We
That's
all know it
unfortunate.
happens. So it's very important that we make wills and kind of give direction to our next generation,
So
our
everything is
families.
supposed to be legalized, I guess.
100%. We live in such a unique system. Canada has such a strong judicial
And we
system.
have to educate our generations.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Our
There's
women.
mechanisms for everything, and if you just kind of talk to your lawyer and say, listen, this is my thought process, what can I do to make it clean or smooth, then, you know, we're there to help. We'll say
Yeah.
either it exists or either we would say yes, and this is the legally binding authority behind it, and let's move and create a systematic plan for you so that you're satisfied. Right?
Yeah.
Whether that be investing and reviewing, or whether that be drafting for a will, or whether that be proceeding towards divorce litigation, like everything, we can guide you through everything in a smooth mannerism, plus keeping your budget in mind.
Yeah.
You know?
Got it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So just a quick question. The student lawyers, do you guys sometimes accept student lawyers?
Oh, articling positions?
Articling
Is that what you
Articling
mean?
position?
We are open to students.
I
that
think
are wanting to-
2024 we were done it, and now in
Yeah.
2025 we're gonna reopen those
So you guys
positions.
can see on the camera if you
Yeah.
guys are accepting for your firm.
Absolutely, we are. We will be opening up some positions at our firm, and we are willing to accept paralegals, potential
Articling,
articling
clerks.
students, even lawyers if they want to join our firm and expand. We are in the phase of expanding, and absolutely we will be putting it out on our websites,
Absolutely.
all over the net about our positions that open.
So guys, we are talking here with Ayoun and Sabeeya Haroon. They have their own firm, law firm. It's in Mississauga. You guys can say the phone number on the
Yes,
screen.
so we are, so our direct phone number is 905-232-2793, what's showing up at the bottom of your screen. And we are located here in Mississauga. It's very central actually. Here, Ontario and Matheson are the major intersections, and the actual address is 25 Watline Avenue, Unit GR21. And people recognize us with the big purple wall.
Yeah, and this is Mississauga, by the way.
Yeah,
Mississauga.
in Mississauga.
So we're
Actually, I've
local.
never been in your office. So it's exactly where?
You know, it's right on Watline and here, Ontario. Do you know the CRA building?
Right
Highland
across
Farms?
that.
Right
Oh, okay.
across.
The
so,
waterfall building.
Adjacent to Highland Farms.
Yeah,
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
yeah. It's actually, it's a very easy address
Yeah.
with free parking, so you don't even have to worry about that.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
great. Okay, thank you so much, guys.
Thank
No
you so much
problem,
for
Mara.
having
Thank
us.
you for having us.
Our audience, our communities,
Yeah.
and it's
It's
really-
always a pleasure to be with you.
yeah, it's
Absolutely.
always great talking to you guys.
Yeah.
You guys are really great and
Thank
really
you.
smart.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you
so
so
much,
much.
Saima.
Thank you for your kind words.
Likewise.
So did you guys achieve most of your goals in 2024 as
I
we
think
are finishing?
alhamdulillah,
Yeah.
yes, we did.
Yes.
I think we did. There are certain areas that we could do better, but it's not something we decided. It's just the way the market is, the way things are. But I think every time there is a gloomy outlook to the economy, there's always a hidden opportunity. And I think this is a good time to expand ourselves, get more involved in it. Even though we do get involved with the community, but I think this is a good opportunity to shake more hands, get to know people, and expand our business and get ourselves even more recognized.
But it's been, alhamdulillah, a good ride. Like 2024 has brought in a lot of communal word of mouth, and there's been a buzz, and the transparency in our service really excites people because they're tired of just bad service.
Yeah. Hidden
So
costs
yeah,
and-
so that's been alhamdulillah a really big a positive movement in the
Yeah.
firm. So
Like we like doing business when we go out and we deal with a company that's transparent and clear.
it makes everything good.
This is your
right?
billing, this is your service, it's clear. Even if some of the information we may not like, but we're glad that somebody's sharing it with us, even though that information may not be pleasing to us, but we still want to hear that. So that's why with our firm, transparency is very important.
So you
It
guys
is.
We
are
talk
good
about-
listeners.
It's all over our
it's about
website. It
you
really
have to-
is.
You have to listen to the client. You have to explain to them what success means.
A
A lot of
personable
times it's not about
approach.
just winning a case.
Yeah.
It's about mitigating. It's about minimizing the losses, and
Exactly.
it's that clear explanation that people are seeking,
Absolutely.
and that's what we do.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we met in 2024, right?
I think it was
You guys-
before that.
No, before that.
2023?
Yes,
2023 or maybe
I think
even
early
2022.
22. Yeah, with Ayoun.
Yeah.
You connected with Ayoun first.
Yeah, it was a while
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah, that's how fast time goes.
Yeah, nice.
It does, right?
All right. So any advice for the young people?
Who are investing in condos?
And
Any-
overall,
Overall, okay.
Or young lawyers?
Okay. The advice would be, you know, whatever you're doing, just do it with utmost honesty and do it the best that you can do.
With consistency.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you're striving to meet a goal, whether that be, you know, you're trying to attain higher education, you're trying to invest in something, you're trying to grow your portfolio, just keep at it no matter how much you fail.
Yeah.
You know, if you fail and then you don't get up, but then you failed, you've not gone back up. But if you get up and you try again, then that means you're still in that race and you're still running for it, whatever you desire, right? So whatever you want to do, try to do it with that passion. And then inshallah, I always tell Ayoun, you know, Allah puts barakat in it and then you reap that reward. It may not feel like it at that time when you've just fallen and you're trying to get back up, but there's always light at the end of the tunnel.
And you know, I always say create worthiness for yourself. And
Exactly.
what I mean to say is that if you're putting proper effort into something and then you end up asking somebody, I'm talking about economically, cost efficiently, if you're asking something, let's just say for a service that costs $500, well then make sure that the client is satisfied that yes, that service was worth $500.
Of course.
Don't make it, you know, that's the common problem that we see in lawyers. They just don't want to do the work, but they're charging clients a lot. I'm not saying it's a huge problem in lawyers, but that's a problem everywhere since we're talking about
Services in general,
Services
right?
in general, the service
Yeah.
sector. There's a common problem with our service sector is that everybody's paying premium prices for services, but it's not at that level. It's not at that professionalism. So my advice to young lawyers is do the work properly and then charge people what it's worth, right? And then
Yeah.
make yourself worthy. Don't make it sound like we're going to do everything. You know, sometimes you see these weird ads, people that are trying to start up. Sometimes people don't have a business ethic or sense. Oh, we're going to charge you $500 for the entire transaction. You know, yeah, that may be something that you're trying to lure clients in with, but in the long run, you're ruining it for everyone. Because people that are actually working hard and not like the $500 job, but perhaps a much better the job that's going to cost much more, you're ruining it for that person because you're ruining the experience for the person who's going to come to you for $500 and you're going to give him a service that is going to reflect the
Yeah,
amount.
they expect
The market
It's
then
that
is
that
like-
bad experience that you're causing everyone, the person coming to you, the lawyers. So I think charity starts from home. Work with your standards. Work with you know what you've done, the service, the quality of service, and you know good example is again U.S. I visit the U.S. often. I see that like even if you walk into like a Walmart or a small convenience store, people are smiling, people are happy. They're asking you small questions. Hey, how was your day? Or, you know, how's the weather like? Or you talk about a game. So these are little gestures that we need to do, bring that Canadian friendliness back into the system, rather than just everybody being frustrated and saying, I got to make my shift towards the end. And I don't think that should be the aim. The aim should be giving people experiences.
Today we have discussed the condo laws in my show with my guests, and you after watching this show you will know, being a citizen, what are your rights, what are your legal rights, and for more know about your legal rights, keep watching my show, and I see you in my next episode. Bye.